The king is dead, long live the king, so say the British. And we've witnessed in the recent elections that just unfolded, we've witnessed the fall of some dynasties in Metro Manila and in the provinces. And boy, for those who love underdog politics, they probably feel good to see that some political clans or dynasties have fallen. For example, in Manila. And we have this news from South China Morning Post, written probably by a Filipino writer. His name, yeah, Alan Robles. I think Mr. Robles is like a critic of Duterte, but I'm gonna read his article in, nevertheless. So end of a dynasty, House of Estrada, the biggest loser in Philippine midterm elections. And so says the lead. Disgraced former President Joseph Estrada, 82, lost his bid for a third term as Manila mayor, a defeat that looks set to be shared by the rest of his family. Well, that turned out to be true because two of his sons, the half brothers, JV and Jingoy, are losing their respective Senate bids. You know, as we've seen the very recent or the most updated results of the senatorial elections, and not one as well. No one from the Ocho Derecho also made it to the Magic 12. And we're gonna talk about that later. I'm just gonna wrap up this story about Strada losing, the Strada or Herceto family losing their respective bets during these recent midterm elections. And this is actually good news because, well, not really good news for me because I'm actually neutral when it comes to this issue. I didn't vote for the reason that I wasn't able to make it during the registration process. Did I regret not registering? Yes, of course I did. I wish I would have voted so that I wouldn't have any complaining to do or wanting to do when it turns out that those elected by the people are actually corrupt. You know, but that's gonna be another story. So the Strada family mayor, former mayor, is still the mayor up to these days until the inauguration or some kind of his Isco was already proclaimed, Esco Moreno. But Isco Moreno, a former actor, is not actually a well-known actor during his days, but he turned to politics, which turned out to be one of the best decisions probably made in his life. And he was able to beat the Goliath in politics, former president who was convicted of plunder, Joseph Ejercito Estrada. He was able to beat the former president by over 100,000 votes, and that means that he won a landslide election. It can never be contested at all by Estrada. He could not claim that, oh, I was cheated, the election was rigged. He couldn't, make that alibi just to save his face because this must be a humiliating defeat for the Estrada family. They were totally rejected. In San Juan, for example, Zamora, there's this news in San Juan about Francis Zamora, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know this guy, but he's, according to the news I've read earlier, he's a LaSalle graduate, and he was able to beat one of the children, the daughter of Strada, in a hotly contested election. And in Makati as well, I'm just wrapping this up. You already know what's going on in Makati. Um, former mayor and former vice president Jejomar Binay lost his bid, congressional bid, to Kid Pena. Kid Pena was an interim mayor. He was an appointed mayor by former President Aquino after the ouster of Junjun Binay due to corruption. A few years ago, Pena was beaten, you know, by Abi Binay during the past two elections. That was in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. But he was able to make a comeback and was able to beat the patriarch of the Binay family, Nugnog or Jejumar Binay, in the hotly contested congressional elections in Makati. And the former vice president lost by over 5,000 votes. So, is this going to be the end of the dynasty for the Estrada family? We don't know. Also in Pasig, the son of Vic Soto and Conor Reyes, Vico Soto, was able to beat the political dynasty there, the Eusebio family, and he won. Vico Soto won via a landslide election. It can never be contested because the lead was by uh, tens of thousands of votes. So, well, for the senatorial bets, it's not really good news for those rooting for the Ocho Derecho candidates to win these midterm elections because, well, Iglesia Ni Cristo, the INC endorsed not one from the Ocho Derecho slate. Not one. Instead, the INC, Iglesia Ni Cristo, endorsed 12 senatorial candidates, 9 of whom are backed by the administration, which is not surprising because Iglesia Ni Cristo is known to endorse winning candidates who have the potential to win, according to some people or some observation of some political pundits. Probably, well, it's probably because they don't want to see their endorsed candidates lose. We don't know, but the interesting part here is that they endorse plunderers, they endorse corrupt people, and it reflects, if it really reflects much um, on the what kind of church Iglesia Ni Cristo is. Is it a church that endorses plunderers, corrupt people? Imagine, Iglesia Ni Cristo endorsed Jingoy Estrada, a member of a very influential political clan. Jingoy Estrada lost. We don't know if he's gonna make it, but based on the recent or the most updated senatorial election results, he's at top 15, and it endorsed Lito Lapid, an actor known for his Ang Provinciano gig. It endorsed Nancy Binay, member of a political clan, although we don't know of any Nancy Binay controversy aside from the fact that she is uh, always a target of jokes and memes by online media influencers. Like, for example, Senora. We all know Nancy Binay because of the memes of these influencers in social media. And Bongo, the Joseph Goebbels of President Estrada, the right hand guy of the press of Duterte. I'm sorry, President Duterte. I mean Marcos. She was able to make it in top 12. A daughter of of former uh, dictator of the country, former president Marcos. So, are we? Is it safe to say that INC is endorsing members of political dynasties in the country, that it's endorsing corrupt and plunderers? Probably. Well, Graceful is part. This Ramon Bong Revilla Jr., who was convicted of plunder. He was, in prison for corruption. And Cynthia Villar, the leading senatorial bet, an independent. So nothing nothing is gonna change our politics if we all get these same traditional politicians or trapos during election times because of the influence of the Iglesia de Cristo. I don't know the number of voters, registered voters of this church, but it's in the millions. Oh, 1.7 million registered Iglesia de Cristo voters. That's 1.7 million. That's a lot. So if you're able to get the endorsement of the Iglesia de Cristo because of its culture or policy of black voting, you're definitely assured of 1.7 million. That's like, a portion of the whole population or the voters in Metro Manila. So this is what we get, a church. Well, I don't really disagree with this because I don't think the government must meddle or interfere um, with this culture or policy of block voting by Iglesia Ni Cristo, because I believe in religious rights. It's part of their religious rights. Although I must say that it's an influence buying technique by the Iglesia Ni Cristo. It's INC is using the excuse that, okay, it's part of our culture, is part of our doctrine probably, but in reality, that's influence buying. They're using it to advance their influence, to further uh, extend their influence to politics. And influence in politics means money, it means power, it's political power, so to speak. Because imagine being feared by politicians every election season, that they are begging for the endorsement of the top patriarch of the church, the Manalo, whoever that is he God? Definitely not. But I'm not here to criticize the INC. I i respect its policy of block voting, but we cannot avoid the fact that it can be seen as a way of expanding its secular influence in politics. And politics, as we say, is power. It means power, it means money, it's gold. Okay, it's like monetizing money, yeah, monetizing its religious position in our society. And that's what we get. We have Lito Lapid, we have Bong Revilla, we have Bato de la Rosa, Bongo, Ami Marcus in or within the top 12 circle. And I think they're already assured of the seat or of the senatorial position based on the recent updates. Here, this is the from Inquirer. This is a Comelec tally. 53.29% counted, already counted. 89 out of 167 COCs transmitted. And as you can see, there's the top contender is Villar with 10 million votes. That's a far cry compared to the PPCRV Inquirer Transparency tally. wherein Mrs. Villar got 24 million, more than 24 million votes. But as we can see here, this is the official tally from the Comelec, right? From the Comelec, and I think it's here only Bam Aquino of the Ocho Derecho is leading among his Ocho Derecho colleagues, top 13th, but Nancy Bina is still assured of the top 12. But uh, on the PPCRV Inquirer tally, Ejercito Estrada is vying for the top 12 position against Nancy Binay, and the lead of Nancy Binay is by over 200,000 votes. So there you go. The senatorial positions are not yet sealed. It's still up for grab. But we all know that many of the president's endorsed bets have made it. A number of them. For example, Bongo, he is a right man guy, right guy, right hand guy. I'm sorry, right hand guy. Bongo. He is a Joseph Goebbels. That's how I call him. Um, and he's able to make it. Also, Bato de la Rosa was able to make it. And that means that if this were indeed um, a referendum on President Duterte, that means that he was able to seal the deal and was able to expand his power not only in Congress, in local politics, but also in the Senate. He's able to add uh, more allies in the Senate, which means that he is assured of in near dictatorship. If he would like to extend his term, he's probably is able to make it. He has majority in Congress and Senate and in local politics. You know, our president Rodrigo Duterte is nearly a dictator. That's who he is right now. He's so powerful that he could, if he wants, if he wants it, if he wanted it, he could definitely change the constitution. And this is where I'm trying to discuss here. President Duterte could definitely change the charter if he would like, if he wanted it. That's that's for sure. Because he has the number in Congress, he also is going to get the number in the Senate after all this, or after all the dust is settled down. But what my complaint here is, if he's really willing to improve our economy, the best way to do it is to change the economic provisions in the Constitution. And I always believe that Duterte is not President Trump. They're not alike in terms of economic policies. President Trump, the very first month that he assumed power or the presidency in the United States, he committed to deregulation. He deregulated. He scrapped the regulatory policies imposed by his predecessor Barack Obama, and that really helped the economy of the United States. That brought back, the manufacturing jobs that were lost during the Obama administration, and yeah, he lessened protectionism and regulations, and he knew it because he's a businessman. He's been doing this, or he's been like advocating this for many decades, since 1980s. So if President Duterte is willing to solve our economic problem, the only way to do it is focus on the economy. He should forget about, or probably set aside, or make his war on drug his second priority, because you know it's not gonna help our economy. He could kill millions, or yeah, millions or hundreds of thousands of drug dealers, drug users, but you know, that's not gonna solve our economic problem. The only way to solve it is to make our economy more open for competition. That's it. It's the economy is stupid, as they say. But that's just my 2 cents when it comes to how to solve our economic problem. The only way, again, to resolve our economic problem is by becoming, or by being open to ideas, economic ideas, by making our economy more open to competition, to foreign investment, because that's what Singapore did, that's what China did, that's what every Asian economic tiger did over the past 20 years. And we were, an economic tiger, so to speak, in the 1970s, in the 1960s. The reason why is USA was there. The United States of America was uh, our major trading partner during those lost years, lost decades. But when we kept our protectionism, when we kept our 19, um, our the recent 1986 Constitution, and when China, when Singapore, when South Korea, when Japan, and all of these Asian economic tigers and those uh, developed economies in Asia, when they opened the economy to America, to Europe, they were able to expand their economy. They were able to attract investors from all over the world, and that made their economy grow. And Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore said that. Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore said that they were able to make it by keeping their relevance to the world, by attracting European and American investors. And that's what Lee Kuan Yew said. So, what I'm trying to say here is that President Duterte should be smart enough to learn from the masters in Asia, like Lee Kuan Yew. Lee Kuan Yew had to study the economic success uh, of the free economic zones in China, how they did it. Oh no, it's actually the reverse. It's China who learned from Lee Kuan Yew, and after that, China opened 12 economic zones in China, um, in its provinces, and that's the start of the economic boom in China, by being open to investment, because that's the only way you can provide jobs to your people, by being um, economically free. You know, um, China was able to make it. Singapore was able to make it. South Korea was able to make it. Taiwan was able to make it, and and Hong Kong as well. Hong Kong has been one of the most free economies in the world for 2 decades, and you cannot beat that. So I'm not saying forget about the war on drugs. Of course, that's probably important, but the president is being his attention is being diverted by this war on drugs that's not gonna end. Even if you're gonna kill millions of drug users, drug pushers, drug lords in the Philippines, it's not gonna resolve it, because America's war on drug failed, and President Trump knows that. He knows that it's not gonna solve the issue. The only way we can fight drug, or the war on drug, is to focus more on our economy, because if people have jobs, they wouldn't resort to selling drugs. That fixing our economy is must be the first option, and that's the only option. And that's gonna be it for today, and thank you for watching. I hope you're gonna subscribe. I'm gonna do some screenshot vlogging in the future, and have a great one.